Hey, a lot of the times when we recommend or review fragrances, we go ahead and tell them that they are aquatic, they are woody, they are versatile, they are spicy, gourmand, and so forth. And it kind of becomes very difficult for a newbie to understand what are these fragrance categories and what kind of fragrances fit into what type of categories and all of those things. And actually, we have about 20 different categories plus that can be looked at or summarized easily in terms of different fragrance categories. And I thought let's go ahead and talk to you about these 20 categories of fragrances and what fragrance recommendations can we talk about here so that it becomes easy for you to kind of build a nice collection of fragrances. And that's the idea behind this particular video. So today we're going to talk to you about 20 fragrance categories and plenty of fragrance recommendations. Now, when I was actually doing up this particular video idea, I was actually thinking of recommending only 20 categories and 20 fragrances, but then I realized that it's going to be very difficult to do this because there are so many fragrances in each of these categories. So it's going to be very challenging to actually do that, to stick to only 20 fragrances. So I'm going to talk to you about a lot of them today, and I hope this kind of gives you a clear idea about what kind of fragrances fall into what category, and and some of them might overlap because that's how fragrances are kind of built, right? And I hope this video will be insightful for you to build a very nice collection. And if you're starting something new, starting a small collection, this will be very helpful is what my thoughts are. So if you kind of like this particular video, definitely do those three things: like, share, and subscribe, because every time every one of you clicks on that subscribe count and that count increases, it really becomes a motivating factor. And I've told this plenty of times, the only thing that drives us is that subscribe button. So definitely do that, and I'll be happy when this count increases, right? So without further ado, let's get into this particular video. You're watching the Perfume Experience. My name is Rodney. Let's get into this right after this intro. Alright, welcome back. And the first category of fragrances that we're going to talk here is basically the versatile category. Now, the versatile category of fragrances are fragrances that you can reach at any point of time. They are absolutely wonderful to wear. They are mass pleasing. They will give you a lot of compliments. Most importantly, they can be worn for office. They can be worn for evening wear, day wear, winter, summer, all of those categories. That is the ideal situation. Now, when I think about fragrances on this particular category, for me, the most closest to art is Club de Nuit Intense or the Aventus DNA. Okay, now this is the EDT version. I do also have the EDP or the Pure Parfum edition as well, and absolutely lovely DNA of a fragrance because it is fruity, it is mossy, it is woody, all of those points, and it actually kind of mass pleasing DNA works very well. Also another reason why it's the most popular DNA in the world. So a lot of fragrances are very good in this particular category, but the most popular one for me is definitely has to be the Aventus category. Now, aside to this, there are some other recommendations that I would highly suggest you would be like, for example, Bazinga from the house of Centedelic, which is an alternate of Greenlee. Now, you could think about this, or you could think about Fragrance World's Aether, okay, which is also a very good addition because this is again sweet, it's woody, it's green, herbaceous kind of a vibe. So very versatile kind of fragrance, which is again that. Or the most mass pleasing fragrance that I've kind of seen people absolutely enjoy is let's say, yeah, okay, so this is basically YSL Y. So Yves Saint Laurent's YSL Y is a beautiful fragrance that sits between this citrusy, green, floral vibe, which is very beautiful, lightly sweet, very mass pleasing, works very well, performs really well as well. And one other fragrance that I would highly recommend in this category is the Terre de Hermès. Okay, so this is also very beautiful. This is spicy, this is more louder, and all of these fragrances that I'm recommending to you here are very versatile in its scent profile. Like especially when you think about this is a more spicy, woody, and it's got a vetiver kind of a vibe as well. Mass pleasing, works across all of these DNAs. Now, when you think about these fragrances, they are perfect for all year round across. So if you have one of them or a couple of them, they are well suited in your collection to build a very beautiful collection of fragrances. So that is the first list, which is versatile fragrances. Moving ahead to another category, this is the leather fragrances. And so here what I've done is to club two different categories, which is leather and tobacco. Now, when you think about leather and tobacco requires a little bit of an acquired taste because a lot of the time this is not a DNA that a lot of other people might appreciate around. Mostly it is you as a fragrance enthusiast who will love this kind of a DNA, and you would want to kind of build fragrances around this DNA. So when you think about fragrances like this, there are a lot of them that are really, really good, but I could suggest things like Leather by Ahmad Al Maghrabi, which is I think an alternate for Ombre Leather from the house of Tom Ford, which is a beautiful leather fragrance. It is crisp, it is bold, it is slightly borderline animalic, but it works absolutely beautiful. It's a very loud fragrance. Similarly is the Ignite Oud as well, because Ignite Oud again has got a leather oud accord to it. Very nice fragrance, loud, very mature. Now, one other fragrance that I would highly recommend when you about this kind of a category is also from the house of Maison Alhambra, called Afro Leather. This is again from an alternate of Memo's African Leather, which has got a slightly sweet coriander, cumin kind of a spiciness, a beautiful mass appeal approach. So this is probably more versatile for me when you think about leather fragrances, or as such. Now, another addition to this would also be the tobacco fragrances, and I would suggest good tobacco fragrances like Mancera's Red Tobacco. This would be a good bet to have. This is a beast mode, extremely loud kind of fragrance. Alternates to this also would be like, if you can think about Centedelic's Amwood's Royal Tobacco is a very good addition, or Maison Alhambra's exclusive tobacco. These are good additions as a lovely tobacco fragrance that you can think about. Many fragrances we are going to talk about, or some of them I might miss in terms of recommendations, but I'm giving you a sense of how these fragrances would be and what kind of a DNA works. Now, when you think about long-lasting fragrances, oud and leather combination of fragrances work really well. Most of the ones that I recommended as leather fragrances, they will give you upwards of 6 to 8 hours and beyond kind of a performance. So they're really good in terms of long lasting, very value for money, beast mode kind of sense. Whereas versatile fragrances that we spoke about might give you a figure of 5-6 hours time, probably slightly lesser here and there, but they're slightly lesser in terms of the projection and loudness. So, but they will work very beautifully for any kind of an environment, right? So moving ahead, we'll talk about the next category of fragrances, which is the Oud Rose combo. Okay, now the Oud Rose has become one category by itself because there are so many variations of fragrances that are in this particular category, and they all are absolutely beautiful. However, I would recommend a couple of them which I think are really good, which are beautiful fragrances to consider. One is Latafa's Amethyst, which is the Oud Flow Glory series. Now, in this particular fragrance, you have oud, which is like the Oud Flow Glory kind of a oud, which is saffron oriented, oud sweet, but then it's got a very mild hint of rose that works very well. Beautiful fragrance, which is very mass appealing. Again, it's very beautiful for celebrations, occasions, and all of that. And I think lovely rendition of a beautiful fragrance to consider. This is Amethyst from the house of Latafa. Now, when we talk about Oud Rose combo, there are lovely series of fragrances that I experienced this year. Like, for example, you can think about Flamenco, okay, from Ramon Monegal. This is again from Centedelic, as a very beautiful rendition of this beautiful masculine, musky rose kind of a fragrance that you can definitely think about wearing, which is really good. You can think about that. And also there is a lovely fragrance from MFK, which is Oud Satin Mood. It's a jammy, sugary rose, rose oud combo, and very beautiful fragrance. Now, the rose oud combo has got so many iterations to it: spicy, masculine, woody, all of that. But one fragrance really stands out in this particular DNA, especially in this modern age and time, is Bit Shake from the house of Ahmad Al Maghrabi, because here the quality of oud is superb, the rose is fabulous. Again, very beautiful, fragrance, lasts really long. You can even think about Ombre Namor also in this particular genre, because there again you have leather, oud, incense and all of that. But if you talk about pure oud rose combo, which is a very Middle Eastern type of a combo, then Bin Sheikh is one of them that you can definitely consider. Okay, so that is 3 down in terms of the categories. Next, let's look at the boozy category. Okay, now what are boozy fragrances? Fragrances that have got a boost into it, got a vibe of a boozy element that makes it very romantic, mature, especially good for winters and evenings. And there are 2 fragrances that I could think about which are absolutely beautiful. One is Givenchy's Gentleman Reserve Privé. Now, I do have a very small dab left of it because it is really good. If you can't get this, you should definitely get Albate's Gentleman Reserve Privé, which is fabulous again. Very beautiful fragrance to consider. It's got a nice boozy accord. It's got a cinnamon sweetness kind of thing. Then, of course, my favorite, Zemaya's Sharaf. Now, this is a take on Kilian's Angel Share. Now, by Kilian itself has got I think almost all of their fragrances have got some amount of booze in it. So, for example, you can think about Apple on the Rocks or Apple Brandy on the Rocks. All of them are really good boozy vibe to it. Okay, but this one also is very, very beautiful. This is got a nice sweet cinnamon sweetness to it, booze, cognac to it, and a lot of woody notes to it. Lovely fragrance, especially when you think about winter fragrances. So when you think about woody and boozy kind of fragrances, I think these are fragrances that work absolutely beautiful. You can definitely consider them, add them to your list. Again, performance is decent. With boozy fragrances, what happens? You don't really get a long-lasting fragrance per se. You will get an average performance, like maybe 5-6 hours, 4 to 5 hours in most of the cases. But they carry a scent profile of very high-class, rich, something absolutely loud, beautiful type of a vibe. So you will really enjoy boozy fragrances. Next is a very popular category, fresh fragrance category. Now, when you talk about fresh fragrances, are very difficult to kind of categorize them in particularly fresh category as such, because today it's kind of overlapped with citruses, fresh, think about spiciness or think about sweetness, marine accords and all of that. Now, when you think about this particular genre of fragrances, I do have a few of them which are my favorite fragrances. Okay, like I always carry a Sauvage decant with me. This is, I think, a 20 ml decant, and I always love this because this has got a lovely vibe of a fresh fragrance. It's got that green, spicy, herbaceous, aromatic type of a vibe. Very nice. Or you can consider Sheikh Zayed Blue, which is also an alternate of the Sauvage Elixir. But then you can also consider Theorem. You can also consider Tiger. These are Bulgari Tiger. These are also fragrances that fall into this category of beautiful fragrances. If you think about Middle Eastern fragrances, you can think about Kaf. Again, is a very fresh, sweet, white floral type of a fragrance. And of course, one of my favorite fragrances, the Intense Sedrat Boa, which is really, really good because this has again got a nice fruity, leathery accord to it, but with a lot of freshness. Now, you can think about fragrances like Aventus as well, the DNA of fruity fragrances as well. But primarily, when you think about fresh fragrances, these are fragrances that have got a more sun-soaked vibe, that have got a zesty, lemony, gingery type of an opening, which makes you feel a little fresh. Minty vibes also can be a good condition to it. They are not evening wear, they are mostly daytime wear kind of fragrances. So that's how you kind of distinguish to figure out lovely daytime wearing fragrances. Like you can think about Modest Une as well, which is a woody kind of a fragrance, again built around the DNA of Swatch. But my absolute favorite fragrance would be in this category is the blue category, which is basically the fresh fragrances. Now, in the blue category, you can think about David of Cool Water as well, which falls into that definite category of lovely office-going, mature, spicy kind of fragrance. But for me, this works absolutely wonderful because this is my go-to fragrance and my favorite fragrance when you think about a fresh fragrance that I want to wear. I could also think about a very new find, a recent find. This is from Maison Alhambra's Azure, a take on Afternoon Swim, which is very fresh, beautiful, citrusy kind of fragrance. But I will also feature this in another list. Now, when you think about these kind of lists, you will notice that some fragrances overlap because some categories overlap. But if you think about, the fresh category, which is part of the, if you think about the blue fragrances, which are part of the fresh category, they are something very masculine, spicy, aromatic, and everybody kind of, likes them. They also fit very well into the versatile fragrance categories. Next, let's look at Gourmand fragrances. Now, this is absolutely beautiful type of DNA, which is very, very good. And I love certain fragrances in this category. My favorite being from the house of Afia. This is Theodosius, which is a take on Italica, Zurge of Italica, very beautiful Gourmand type of chocolate that, it's got this nutty, caramelly vibe, loud, beast mode fragrance. If you haven't experienced this is absolutely gorgeous. It's caramelly, sweet. It's like eating Lacto King, but it's like on steroids. Absolutely beautiful. I enjoy this particular fragrance. This is one of them that I would highly recommend you to try. You can definitely try Honor and Glory because there is pineapple, creme brulee, very beautiful, musky, very nice DNA that opens very, very well. And one of my favorite fragrances, This is an alternate of Tom Ford's Black Orchid. Now, Black Orchid again has got a lot of spices, it's got sweet elements, it's got truffle, it's got that chocolatey vibe, and it's absolutely beautiful, very unisex in nature, and they work really, really good. But last but not the least, a lovely fragrance that I recommended the other day, Brûle, again falls into the Gourmand line because it has got that caramel, chocolatey, woody kind of a vibe. Very beautiful fragrances that will give you a good lasting about 5-6 hours, and winters especially is nice. Something different that you can wear. A good coffee fragrance also would fit into this category very well. You can definitely give these a try as well, right? Now, since it's borderline gourmand, we will look into some woody fragrances, and here I'm going to recommend some very nice fragrances. One of my recent favorites that I have had, and I've kind of liked this a lot, is the Moksha. Okay, this is from the house of Scentadelic. This is the Moksha Absolute. There is going to be a video that will come out for all of the Absolutes from the house of Scentadelic, and this I absolutely like because this has got a nice vibe of sandalwood. Fragrances that have got a sandalwood, woody, cedar, wood, rosewood. These are very good recommendations when it comes to a woody nature of fragrance. So for me, sandalwood recommendation would be Moksha. You can think about Blue Oud from the house of Ahmad Al-Maghrabi. You can think about fragrances like Dior Rosewood from the house of Follow Me Perfumes. Okay, so those are like really, really good. But one of the killer fragrances, if you're able to get your hands on, should be this Yardley's Original, which is a beautiful take of woody, sweetness, lovely texture. Now, what happens in a woody fragrances is you get sweet, you get cardamom, you get maybe cinnamon vibe as well, but they will have this woody nature to it, which is making it very beautiful. So classy fragrances to consider, very nice. This is a little difficult to get your hands on, especially if you're in India, but if you're able to get this, definitely try this because this is complete paisa vasool fragrance when it comes to a woody fragrance. Other honorable mentions would be to get Code Absolute from the house of Muzna fragrances, or any of the Armani Code series is like really, really good under woody fragrances as well. Next list is one of the most popular lists when it comes to office going fragrances that you kind of enjoy is the Aquatic Marine kind of series. Okay. Now in the Aquatic Marine kind of fragrance world, there are a lot of fragrances that work very well, but one of the beautiful ones is to get Kenzo's EDT. Now the Intense, this is really out there because this has got a nice fig note, it's got that saltiness, it's got that marine vibe to it. Fragrances that smell like seas, that smell like sea salt. Very nice. Now, if you can't get this, you can think about getting Latafa's Wajood, which is very, very good. Or you can think about getting Atlas from Latafa, which is a Megamare oil, because that also has got that similar, salty marine accord kind of thing. Another beautiful fragrance to recommend would be Aqua Oud from the house of Ahmad Al-Maghrabi, which is an alternate of Perfumo. So Perfumo as a DNA or Profondo as a DNA also has got a lot of incense, salt, marine kind of a vibe, citrus kind of vibe, works beautiful in that particular category. Aquatic fragrances, you can think about Dolce & Gabbana, Light Blue, these fragrances, or David of Cool Water again falls in these categories. Overlaps, like I said, because you have a blue fragrance, you also have aquatic marine kind of a fragrance, works very, very well. Alright, moving on to the 9th category, this is the Oriental category. Now, Oriental is basically fragrances that have got Oriental spices, specifically when you think about allspice, cinnamon, cardamom, saffron. These kind of fragrances work really, really well. And when I think about these fragrances, for me, one of the definite must-have fragrances is Qaid from the house of Latafa, because this is an absolutely beast fragrance when it comes to cardamom as a note, cinnamon, clove. These kind of dominating notes are really, really good. Any of your saffron fragrances work very well in the Oriental series as well, because they are really good and they are mostly warm fragrances, warm spicy fragrances. So you would want to kind of wear them in the evenings, in date night, some celebrations, all of them, because they have a very unique signature smell. They'll be loud, they'll be special. Something like even you can think about Goodness Oud or Oud for Glory as well, because that again has got a similar kind of a DNA. If you're able to hear a scream, that's my son who is creating a ruckus. Alright, ignore that and let's move into the last category here, which is the Middle Eastern type of fragrances. Now, the Middle Eastern type of fragrances are again the Oud for Glory, for example. This comes right again, Goodness Oud, Oud for Glory. They are alternates of initials Oud for Glory, and that's a DNA which is rose, saffron, woody, sweet, incense. A lot of those kind of vibes, and those fall under the Middle Eastern category of fragrances, and they're absolutely beautiful recommendations here. You can think about a lot of fragrances. One is definitely Oud for Glory, and I absolutely will recommend one beautiful fragrance, or rather two, which is this Blue Laverne from the house of Laverne, Bakur from the house of Laverne, which is a take on the Imperial Jissa Valley, and so is Latani from the house of Ahmad al Maghrabi. Now both of these have got citruses, they've got incense, they've got Bakur, so they have that typical Middle Eastern type of vibe which a lot of Middle Eastern people like, and those are good recommendations there for you to explore these kind of fragrances. A lot of the oud fragrances also can be thought about as Middle Eastern fragrances, like your Ombre Nomad can also fit into that because it's got a very incensey, leathery kind of a vibe. So that's pretty much a lot of the fragrance DNAs that we were talking about, and this is part 1 of the video. So you have 10 fragrances that I'm talking about, or categories that I'm talking about in this video, and I will do another video where we will talk about another 10. And if you kind of like the video, hit the like button, definitely comment and let me know something that I've missed, so you can definitely recommend them in your comments there, and I'll see you on another video. Until another time, take care. Bye bye.